6 months before my father died, he called me at 2 o'clock in the morning. He was crying, and he said 5 words I will never forget. Come home. Don't trust Marcus. Marcus is my brother. My younger brother. The charming one. The one everybody loved. By the time I finally understood what my father was trying to warn me about that night, it was almost too late. Because by then, my own wife was already in on it. Let me back up. You need to understand who we were before I tell you what we became. My father's name was Walter. He built everything we had from nothing. One small hardware store and a loan he paid back in cash, and over 30 years, he turned it into a chain of them across the county. He was a hard man with money and a harder man with his pride. But he was fair. He believed people show you exactly who they are, if you're only patient enough to watch. I didn't understand how deeply he meant that until the very end. There were 2 of us. My brother Marcus stayed in our hometown, worked at the company, lived 20 minutes from Dad, easy and laughing, the son who never left. And then there was me. I left at 25, after a fight with my father so bad that neither of us ever fully apologized for it in the 15 years that followed. I built a quiet, ordinary life 4 hours away. I was the difficult one, the distant one, the one who called on holidays and kept it to 4 minutes. And there was my wife, Rachel. I have to tell you about Rachel, because for a long time she was the best thing in my life. Warm, clever. Whenever the tension with my family flared, she was the one who smoothed it. Family is family, she always said. I believed she meant it. That's the part I still can't forgive myself for. How completely I believed her. So when my father called me crying at 2 in the morning, I almost didn't take it seriously. He was 78 by then, and for a year, Marcus had been telling the whole family that Dad was slipping, getting confused, forgetting things, saying things that weren't true. So when Dad said, "Come home, don't trust Marcus, he's moving the papers, he's changing things," I told myself it was the confusion talking. I told him I loved him. I told him to get some sleep, and I hung up. I have replayed that phone call 1,000 times since. Over the next few weeks, I tried to call him back, but Marcus always answered now. Dad's phone lived in the kitchen, so he wouldn't lose it. Always the same. He's having a rough day. Don't upset him. You know how he gets. And slowly, without my quite noticing it happen, I stopped being able to reach my own father at all. So I drove home. And the moment I walked into that house, something was wrong. I'm not a dramatic man. I'm an accountant by trade. I noticed the one number that doesn't fit. And the whole house didn't fit. Marcus had moved in to help. He managed Dad's medications now. He managed Dad's money. He decided who visited and when. And my father, my sharp, stubborn, terrifying father, sat in his chair by the window, soft and slow and far away. Like a man underwater. Every visit, he was like that. Foggy. Sedated. He'd light up for half a second when he saw me, and then the fog would roll back in. And Marcus would put a warm hand on my shoulder and say, sadly, "It's hard. I know. I see it every day." There was a new lawyer around too. A man I'd never met, who Marcus introduced as Dad's advisor. And there was talk, gentle, reasonable sounding talk, about selling the house. For Dad's care, Marcus said. It's what he'd want. So I started watching. It's the only real skill I have. What I found the way I find everything. Quietly, from the edges, over weeks. Marcus had been given power of attorney 8 months earlier, signed on a date when, according to the pharmacy records I later pulled, my father had been put on a sedative strong enough to make a grown man pliable. There was money moving, steady transfers out of Dad's accounts into Marcus's, dressed up as caregiver expenses. And there was a new will being drafted by that new lawyer. A will that left almost everything to Marcus, and painted me, in language I would later read with my own eyes, as the absent, ungrateful son who'd abandoned the family and come crawling back only when there was money in the room. It wasn't grief. It wasn't dementia. It was a takeover. My brother was stealing my father's life out from under him, one sedated signature at a time, and calling it love. And I almost let him. I need to be honest about that. Because the person telling me to let him was the one person I trusted most. Rachel, don't fight your brother, she said every night. You'll tear this family apart and regret it forever. Just let it go. Sign whatever they put in front of you and walk away with your dignity. She said it so gently, so reasonably, that I nearly did exactly that. And then one evening, her phone lit up on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I want that to be true so badly. But I saw the name on the screen, and I saw the first line of the message, and once I'd seen it, I couldn't stop. It was for Marcus. I read 2 years of them, my wife and my brother, going back further than I could stand to count. They weren't lovers. Somehow that would have been simpler. They were partners in this. Rachel had been managing me, keeping me calm, keeping me passive, reporting my every move back to him, for a share of what they took. The last message in the thread is burned into me. It was from her. It said, "He won't fight you. I'll make sure of it. Just don't forget my half." I stood in my father's kitchen, in the house where I grew up, and I understood that I had no brother and no wife. I'd had 2 strangers wearing their faces. Now, here's where most people would do the loud thing. Scream, throw the phone, burn it all down that night. I felt every bit of that. But I am my father's son. He taught me that the person who shows their hand first is the person who loses, and that the patient man, the quiet one, the one who keeps watching while everyone assumes he's beaten, is the man you never see coming. So I did the hardest thing I have ever done. I smiled. I went to Rachel and I told her she was right. Family is family, I said. I'm not going to fight Marcus. I'll sign whatever they need. I just want this to be over. I watched the relief spread across her face. I watched her text him the good news. And they relaxed. They stopped watching me, which was the only thing I needed. Because while they believed I was the defeated, broken brother quietly packing it in, I went to work. I took my father to a real doctor. Not Marcus's man. An independent specialist, 4 hours away, near my home, where Marcus's eyes couldn't reach. I booked it for a day. I took Dad out for lunch, and off his brother's cocktail of sedatives, in a clean room with a real doctor, my father came back. Not all the way. He was 78 and tired. But the fog was a fog of medication, not of mind. The specialist documented it. Documented his clear, lucid capacity. Documented the over-medication for exactly what it was. I hired my own attorney, an elder law specialist who took one look at the pharmacy records, the transfers, and the timeline, and said the words I'll never forget. She said, "You don't have a tragedy. You have a case." And then I did the thing that mattered more than all of it. I took my father out, just the 2 of us, on a clear afternoon. No Marcus, no fog. We drove out to a lake he used to take us to when we were boys. And we sat in the car, with the rain just starting on the windshield, and for the first time in 15 years, my father and I actually talked. He apologized for the fight, for his pride, for all the wasted years. He told me he had always known what Marcus was. "I built a business reading people," he said. "You think I couldn't read my own son?" He told me he'd let Marcus believe he'd won, on purpose, because he needed to see how far the boy would go, and he needed me to wake up and start watching before it was too late. That 2 a.m. phone call, he admitted, had been the most lucid he'd been in months. He'd been terrified I wouldn't come. And then he told me he loved me. The thing fathers like mine never say. He said it in the car, with the rain coming down. And I am not ashamed to tell you that I wept like a child. Before we drove home, with the independent attorney and 2 witnesses I'd quietly arranged, my father signed a new will. A real one. One that said exactly what he wanted. In a moment where every doctor and lawyer in the room could swear he knew precisely what he was doing. And he recorded a statement. Clear. Calm. Naming everything Marcus had done. My father died 11 days later. In his sleep. Himself again. At the end. The reading of the will was Marcus's stage. He'd arranged it like a performance. The relatives gathered in the front room, his lawyer with the leather folder, Rachel beside me with her hand on my arm, the very picture of a supportive wife. Marcus stood, and with that easy charm, began to walk everyone through Dad's final wishes. The will that gave him everything. He even looked at me, sorrowful and kind, and said how glad he was that I'd made my peace with it. I let him finish. Every word. And then I asked if I could share a few documents of my own. I won't pretend I didn't enjoy it. The later will, properly witnessed, medically supported, that quietly voided his. The doctor's report. The pharmacy timeline. The bank records, transfer by transfer, laid out like the accountant I am. And then my father's voice, filling that silent room, lucid, certain, describing exactly what his younger son had tried to do to him. But my father had one last move that even I didn't know about. My attorney stood and explained it. Months earlier, right after that 2 a.m. phone call, my father had contacted her himself. On his own. He'd suspected he was being drugged. So on his clear days, he had quietly played even foggier than he was, to watch what Marcus would do when he believed no one sharp was left in the room. The entire estate had already been moved, weeks before he died, into an ironclad trust that Marcus's forged will could never have touched anyway. And my father's recording didn't end with Marcus. The last thing on it was for Rachel, by name. "I noticed you and my son with your heads together a long time ago," my father's voice said, in front of the whole family. "I spent 30 years reading people across a counter. Did you really think you were the one running the con in my house?" Marcus got nothing, and the documented thefts meant he got a great deal worse than nothing in the months that followed. Rachel got nothing. And she got the front door, in front of every relative she had spent years charming. The estate went exactly where my father wanted it. Split fairly among the family who had been honest with him. A piece set aside for the people who'd worked his stores for decades, and only the share he had chosen for me. I never lied to a soul. I never broke a single law. I just stopped protecting 2 people from the consequences of who they had decided to be. People ask me if it was worth it. If the win was worth the wife and the brother I lost. But that's the part they don't understand. I didn't lose a wife and a brother. I never had them. What I actually walked away with was one clear afternoon by a lake in the rain with the real version of my father. His apology. His voice telling me he loved me. 15 years of silence paid back in a single hour that I will keep until the day I die. Marcus called me the good son once, bitterly. On his way out of the funeral, he meant it as an insult. He thought I'd won some prize he deserved. He never did understand. It was never a prize. My father didn't leave me the money. He left me the truth. And he trusted me to be the one paying attention. It's raining tonight. Same as that afternoon by the lake. And if there's a quiet one in your family, the patient one, the one who stopped fighting a little too easily, the one who just watches, I'd think very carefully about what they might already know. The loudest person in the room has almost always already lost.